So if you have not been on one of these before or have never been to AEIVA, welcome. My name is Christina McClellan. I am the AEIVA Education Manager. AEIVA is short for Abrams Ingle Institute for the Visual Arts. We are a visual arts center located on the campus of the University of Alabama at Birmingham. We present 8 to 10 exhibits a year, highlighting a mix of regionally, nationally, and internationally acclaimed artists focused almost exclusively on contemporary art, but we do have a historical collection as well. We serve a diverse audience of university faculty, staff, and students, but also artists, museum patrons, and donors. We help represent the visual arts at UAB to local and regional institutions, but also the national and international art community, while simultaneously striving to keep our exhibitions directly relevant and engaging to our surrounding Birmingham communities. Since opening in 2014, AEIVA has been featured in publications such as the New York Times, the Huffington Post, The Nation, Raw Vision Magazine, and PBS Canvas, and we are very proud that our exhibitions and related educational programming are free and open to the public, such as these outside line coloring nights. I want to make sure I give a quick shout out to all of our UAB students on the call. This is actually this whole series of outside the lines coloring nights came from one of their ideas. So our Student Arts Council does a lot of great things, and we look forward to seeing what they're going to do in the upcoming year. So welcome to all of our UAB students. Please note that discriminatory or hate language of any kind will not be tolerated. The session is being recorded, but note this recordings are largely the screen shares. So we want to encourage you, if you feel comfortable with it, to turn on your screens. This is a night to decompress, color, and participate in a discussion about art. So we really encourage you guys to ask questions. At the bottom of your screen is a chat feature. Please direct your questions to the group or to Rachel Arnson, who's going to wave her hands, and Rachel will ask the questions for you as the conversation allows. So as a question pops into your mind and we're in the middle of the conversation, just go ahead and type it into the chat, or you can hold it until there's a pause in the conversation. So before we get to tonight's event, I want to draw your attention to some of our other upcoming events, which we do have some, even though the semester is coming to an end here soon. So tonight's event is the last of the Outside the Line series, focusing on AEIVA's current exhibition, A la Carte. A la Carte is an exhibition of 71 works exploring our complicated relationship with food. You can see it in its totality, even after the exhibition closes next week, online at our website, so be sure to check that out. David Sandlin, who is our featured artist for tonight, does have a work up in this exhibition, so we're really excited about it. However, this is not the last coloring night. Join us in 2 weeks for December 17th, when we talk to UAB's Department of Art and Art History Professor of Painting, Gary Chapman. He's going to give us some info about his work, and then it's going to be not necessarily a traditional coloring night. We will be making snowflakes. So you'll need some white paper, at least 12 sheets, and some sharp scissors. And join us to make these really fun and elaborate snowflakes. So he's going to walk us through his process with that and a tutorial. So a little bit different for a coloring night, but a great way to kind of take your mind off of the end of school and any pressures that holiday tends to have for everyone. Okay, so over at the Alice Stevens Center, because we are part of this larger visual and performing arts, we have the last drive-in concert of the year, Eric Essex Holiday Soul. So grab the family, maybe decorate the car if you're here in Birmingham, and make sure you buy your tickets soon, as this concert is selling out fast. On December 19th, over at Art Play, even if you are not here in Birmingham, you are welcome to join with your kids, your family, for a free holiday workshop family day, and that's on December 19th at 2 p.m. on Zoom. So make sure that you sign up soon if you are in town so you can sign up for your art supplies. And then we also have our visual arts pass, and that comes with a lot of perks, but also one of which is the book for David Sandlin's exhibition that was here in 2017. So it's something that you usually have to purchase from us, will be part of this visual arts pass. So if you haven't signed up for this, it's a great opportunity. And I highly encourage it. So now, before we get started, I want us all, if you're working on something tonight, to go ahead and show us what you're working on. We love to kind of see before and afters. I got a head start on mine. And great. Oh, excellent. A lot of us are working on things. Fantastic. So can't wait to see what you guys do by the end of the night. And now what I'm going to do is go ahead and introduce David Sandlin, our featured artist for tonight. David Sandlin was born in 1956 in Belfast, Ireland, and in 1972 he moved with his family to Alabama. David attended UAB for undergrad and is actually one of the first graduates from the Department of Art and Art History here at UAB. Upon completion of the program, Sandlin moved to New York, where he has been painting, printmaking, and creating installations professionally since 1980. His work is centered around a visual narrative, usually nonlinear, that he uses as a structural device to build content and express ideas. Sandlin's elaborate books, prints, drawings, and paintings present semi-autobiographical tales of morality, redemption, and American exceptionalism. So we're going to talk more about those tonight. Sandlin currently lives in New York and teaches printmaking, book arts, and illustration at the School of Visual Arts. He has exhibited extensively in the United States, Europe, Japan, and Australia, including a 2017 exhibition here at AEIVA called 76 Manifestations of American Destiny. His comics and illustrations have appeared in the Best American Comics in 2015, 2012, and 2009, The New Yorker, Raw, and many other publications. His work, A Senator's Progress, was recently accepted into the Library of Congress. He has received fellowships and grants from the Guggenheim Foundation, the New York Public Libraries, Coleman Center for Scholars and Writers, Pollock Foundation, the New York Foundation of the Arts, Swan Foundations for Caricature and Cartoon, amongst other institutions. And in 2007-2008, Sandlin served as a chair for the Lamar Dodd Chair of Art at the University of Georgia. So welcome, David. We're always excited to have you, particularly as an alum of the program. So really excited to have you here. We're going to go ahead and start sharing the PowerPoint. So as you color, you guys are welcome to look at this, but we'll just go ahead and get started. David, tell us, how did you get into art?
I've always drawn since I was a kid. I remember drawing the Flintstones, Speed Racer, and Beano and Dandy characters from British comics. And then my mom loved horror movies and horror comics. She would send me to the store to get those. They were black and white reprints of EC comics in British comic version. And I started picking up Marvel comics and saw Jack Kirby. So Jack Kirby's Collage was the first time I saw pop art.
Great. And so yeah, we're going to go ahead and start flipping through these. So why did you decide to get into art?
I just love drawing, and it's just something I kept doing. I mean, I tried other things, but I found I was drawing the margins of my notebooks. So when I was at UAB, I almost got a math minor. I got a math minor, almost went into engineering or into computer science, but decided art was what I wanted to do.
And so what took you to New York?
Basically, I'd wanted to move to New York because of the music scene, the whole punk scene. But I'd finish up school first, and then move to New York as soon as I finished.
Great. And then if you were going up for music, why did you decide to switch to art?
I know I was just going to have to watch the music. I don't have a taste of music at all. So I sing poorly, dance badly, but perfect for punk.
Nice.
And,
nice.
when I moved to New York, I ended up in the whole East Village gallery scene, so ended up becoming part of that.
Great. So, can you tell us a little bit about what influences in your art? So, for everyone, as we flip through, a lot of these are actually images of the installation that was at AEIVA, such as this one. And so, you do a wide variety of printmaking, drawing, painting, and all in this kind of narrative, visual narrative. So, what influences your story, and kind of um, why are you drawn to that visual narrative style?
When I was at UAB, I tried painting, and it was just too much color. And then I ended up taking John Dillon's drawing class, and he was an inspiration. So he taught me drawing, printmaking, and irreverence. And he was just a great teacher. And I find that with printing, I could figure out color better by having the limitation of having to make separations. Limited color set has become like part of how I work. I work in drawings. Drawings might become prints. Prints might become books or paintings. But it depends if I want to keep thinking about the content any longer. I want to have those options.
So, Rachel.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat about your punk years, David. Lisa asked, what punk bands did David follow at the time?
Good question. The Ramones, Elvis Costello, later on, not quite punk, but two-tone, The Specials, Madness. Before that, Iggy Pop, Velvet Underground, all that stuff.
And John wants to follow up with, what contemporary bands do you follow?
Wilco would be one. Who do I follow?
Pavement a little bit.
Pavement. My stuff is kind of stuck back in the 2000s.
Nice. So again, this walkthrough is of that show 76 Manifestations. So I'm going to take the conversation away from punk music, if y'all forgive me for that, for a little bit, and ask you about your subject matter for your coloring sheets, and I'm sorry, not the coloring sheets, the books and drawings and such. What themes do you find are reoccurring throughout your work?
Two things. Basically, a lot of my work is about America and being transplanted from Ireland to America. And I've tried to think about America in different ways. Like some of these paintings are from a series called The Sinner's Progress, which I was trying to think about American Puritanism, and kind of how I kind of went from Puritanism into hucksterism and con men. And then from that was an education cycle. And then from there I wanted a history cycle. And so that was the 76 Manifestations. And then while I was working on the American history, trying to understand that, I realized my history was also something I wanted to think about. So that's where this painting comes from. So that was the Belfast series.
So can you talk a little bit more about, so you were born in Northern Ireland and then you moved to Alabama. Why did you guys move? And then how does that, when you got to Alabama, how does your life in Alabama kind of parallel what was going on in Ireland?
Ended up in Ireland. My parents were Protestant, and both my sisters married Catholics. So we were very much in the middle of it. We were in row houses in an area called the Shankill, which is a hardline Protestant neighborhood, and our door was tarred. So we had to move from that neighborhood to another neighborhood. That was like saying they would burn us out. So we moved to another neighborhood, and then we moved into a house where cops used to live. So that was a targeted house as well. My dad saw his chance to get back to Alabama. He met my mom during World War II and was yearning for Alabama. So the whole family moved to Alabama, 72. And we ended up landing in New York. It was raining. Landed in Birmingham. It was dark. Ended up driving to the country, Huntsville. Woke up to cornfields, cotton fields. and country music on the radio at 5 in the morning. So total culture shock.
And that was your first trip to the US, was when you guys moved?
Yep.
And so what, I know this kind of figures in your art some, what parallels do you see? Like, what kind of themes are you exploring?
Well, in Ireland, there was Protestants. There was a big Protestant leader called Ian Paisley, who was a preacher. Gotten his certificate from one of the Southern fundamentalist colleges, and he was very divisive and really divided Catholics and Protestants, the working class, and created a big rift between them. So moved to Alabama, so the same thing happened racially. It's happened religiously in Ireland. So I've been suspicious of politicians since.
Of course. And so what we're looking at now is 76 manifestations and some different iterations of it. Can you talk about this project a little bit?
That is Mythic Heroes, Mythic Villains. And this one, I tried to understand people like Bedford Forrest and different presidents and politicians, which ones were heroes to some people, villains to others. And the first volume was an overview that was just 76 manifestations. Second volume was from the Gilded Age to the Gilded Age. That was about financial collapse. This is third volume, Mythic Heroes. There's Jesse James. There's a couple being pursued. There's different holy hosts of hot air, Rush Limbaugh. Then there's a fallen hero. Then there's Lincoln looking towards the Civil War. Then there's different presidents as constantly disappearing heroes and villains. This is the Gilded Age, financial collapse.
So why the title 76 Manifestations of American Destiny?
For two reasons: to play off 1776, and also to play off, it was inspired by Yoshi Toshi's 100 Aspects of the Moon, which he did a retelling of Japanese history through myth, monsters, war battles, geishas, and I wanted to do the same for America. So 76, and then each book has 13 prints, one for each colony. Just stays like that, just to play off it. This is Jefferson Davis rising out of the body of Lincoln. So kind of the South rising again in a very violent way.
Rachel, did you?
Yeah, we have a question in the chat from Peyton, who asks, do you consider your art to be a part of culture? If so, how would you say culture falls into your art?
It's a big question. I would say I like printmaking because it ends up being a more populist craft. It's not just for galleries, it gets it out to more venues. And the same thing with comics. So I like getting my work into venues that are affordable and that would let me communicate to a wider audience. So I see my stuff as kind of part of pop culture, but I'm really influenced by Japanese pop culture, which I think comes closer to being part of folk culture in Japan, and I like that idea.
Why?
Pop and folk culture.
What specifically draws you to Japanese pop culture?
I like, for instance, the monsters. Like the monsters there's a history of those, and those same monsters turned into Pokemon, into monsters in Astro Boy. So just I like that idea of pop culture having a relationship to the past as well as the present. And
so in some of your series, I'm remembering from when it was at AEIVA, you and your family figure in some of those. Do you always put yourselves in some of these, or is it just very specific narratives?
I used to put myself in. I like the idea that if I'm making fun of people, that I'd make fun of myself first. So that kind of shows sympathy with the characters I'm making fun of in the paintings. So I mean, I want this stuff to make people think, not tell them what to think. So I want to have sympathy for the characters in the paintings as well as criticizing them.
Does that play into kind of the a reason that you chose the comic form or that kind of non-linear?
Well, I think I realized that my love of printmaking came from like comics as a kid, just that ink on paper. So I just like the way ink looks on paper, hand separations, making a very finished art object that's cheap and affordable. So I like that aspect of comics and pop culture.
And so let's talk a little bit about process then, since we were talking about non-linear. And I know we'll be getting to a video soon where it demos a little bit of it, but what medium do you usually start with? Can you walk us through your process, and then kind of how do you decide which images are going to become the big paintings and why?
Right. In this series, my challenge was like, first of all, to come up with 100 sketches, very rough sketches to try to match the Yoshitoshi, 100 aspects of the moon. So I started off on index cards, went to bigger cheap paper, and then went to bigger drawings, which I inked in, which I penciled in but didn't ink in, just inked in on glassine like you see here. So that it was still open, I could see what was going on. And then for these prints in particular, you'll see that I did paintings already that haven't made the prints. So the paintings in this case helped me figure out the color for the books. And not every drawing turns into a painting. It just depends on if I want to think about it anymore or not.
Do you end up putting more detail into some of your paintings that, or some of more detail than you did in a drawing into a painting just because you're thinking on it more? Or is it like just a massive replica, a more colorful replica from the books?
It ends up being different. And there's more detail and there's usually more stuff going on because I've thought about it differently from the drawing when it comes to painting.
I know that.
Now, in this case, this was a different case. In this case, I had the drawings, and I tried for a change to project the drawings to get the painting started. And so in this case, the painting started and looks closer to the original sketches for the drawings. And then the drawings changed for the book. So it depends which way I'm working as to which changes the most.
Which way do you normally work? Drawings to paintings, or?
Drawings to paintings. But it really varies. I mean, the thing is, I set up each project for how long I want to think about it. So if I have an idea I want to think about for a long time, that's usually an idea for a very large painting. So I've got that content to think about over a long period of time while painting.
Mm-hmm. Do you have, and so I know I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but do you have any themes or motifs or characters that tend to kind of pop up in each of your works? So going from like Belfast to 76 Manifestations, do you ever find certain motifs?
Well, the family stays in there because I like the idea of it not just being me, stuff's happening to it, but happening to the whole family unit. And I did a side book that was like, "Oh, my son, all of this is yours." Mm-hmm. And I realized what I was trying to think about was what kind of world I was bringing the child into when we had our son. And so at this point, if my son appears in the paintings, he still stays at about 10 years old. I tried to cut it off at 7, thinking that was the classic one by the Jesuit guy. I can't think of his name right off, that said, "Give me a child of 7, I'll give you the man."
So rife with symbolism then.
Yeah. This is another drawing that was influenced by Yoshitoshi. He did a great explosion print as a triptych. And so I really I saw that as my core thing for Belfast. So this drawing was done way before the graphic novel was started. It's my way of thinking out the idea. So I started with this drawing and this turned into a painting. It kind of turned into the graphic novel.
So did this incident actually happen?
No, I made it up.
Okay.
But I think there was one bus bomb, but I don't think it was as dramatic as I set it up. And then what I tried to do here is I have 3 main characters in Belfast, so I did it 3 different ways. This is the Catholic version, and then this is Betty's version, then there's Carl's version, and there's Billy's version.
And who are they, if you don't mind explaining?
Betty and Billy are Faust, so they're a couple as Faust, and Carl is the Mephistopheles character.
Got it. And can you kind of break down, Amanda, is the painting on the next slide? There we go. Would you mind breaking down the painting for us? And because, I mean, there's just so many things going on in here.
Basically, I have a Catholic side and a Protestant side. So King Billy is on the Protestant side, the orange side. And De Valera, the first Prime Minister of the South of Ireland after it was a republic, is on the Catholic side. And then the guys with ties could be orange men getting blown up, but I was painting this when Trump was in the news a lot, so they could also be Trump. And kind of also Boris Johnson, because Brexit was happening. So that kind of seeped in. So
while influenced by the past, you're still very much concerned with what's going on in the present and drawing parallels between the two.
It would be bad news for Northern Ireland. Mm-hmm. Could bring the Troubles back again.
Yeah. Yeah. So the video started playing and I lost my train of thought. As we go through this, what are you working on now? And has COVID changed that?
Yeah, what I'm working on now, I want to be working on volume 4 of 76 Manifestations, but I can't print right now. So basically, I brought up all the drawings that were started, and I'm working on the drawings for volumes 4, 5, and 6. And the drawings for tonight's Coloring in Night are from volume 6, which is about climate crisis.
How many volumes are you planning on doing?
I think 6.
Stop it at 6.
And decided to do for a 7th one.
So, Amanda, if you'll stop your screen share for a moment, I know that you had prepared some of the, and we'll make sure to spotlight you. So, would you mind showing us some of, yeah, there we go, of what you're working on and kind of explain your studio space?
This is our large bedroom in the country, and I have this my drawing studio. And outside in the garage, I have a painting studio, but I haven't got proper heat print yet. So this is one drawing for the back cover. Drawing lines up to it. These all line up with a long panorama. And that one goes away. Just the hair. Then that lines up with this one. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And this one lines up with the next one. Let's see if I keep doing this. And that lines up with that. Move this over.
So are these the ones that will end up in the book? So just for reference, everyone, this is about how high the 76 manifestations that were at AEIVA are. So they are that big. It's not like a normal book size. And David, these are before they go into the book, you will silk screen them, or
I'll scan them in and get the black line, and then I'll make the other separations by hand. I'll show you a set of separations in a second.
Okay.
We have a question from the chat from Lisa, who asks, what is a volume?
It's a book. So just a fancy word for a book. I just like the idea of saying 7 volumes instead of saying 7 books for the series.
Usually a volume would build upon each other. So say you have a set of like a dictionary, and you'd have A through F in one, and then C, D, F, and G. I had to think what letter comes after F, G through M in the next one, and so that would be volume 1, volume 2. But David, do yours actually build upon each other, or can they all stand alone?
They stand alone, but they all will also all connect into one big, giant, long drawing.
Will you ever connect them all and create maybe one or two that are all 6 volumes together, or?
What I would like to do would be do a offset version that connected them all.
And are you going to just do a limited run of those, or what are your ideas for it?
My idea is to do the silkscreen books, the way I've done them is editions of 20. Mm-hmm. And then keep the separation so I can do an offset version. There's a great book by Enrique Shigoya, a Mexican-American printmaker, called the Codex, and it's there's a nice fine art version, and there's a nice offset version. And let me show you the separations. So here's how I do my coloring. There's the black line, drawing scanned in, printed out. Then there's separation for pink.
And so what do you mean by separations?
Basically, I'll shoot the screen with this, and this will be printed in pink. This is the yellow, this will be printed in yellow. You think of them like layers in Photoshop. One's on a separate piece of acetate, so it can be shot for that color and then printed in that color. This is for the blue. And those 4 separations turn into this print. So there's the pink, there's the yellow, there's the blue. And then from yellow and blue, I get green. And then from blue and pink, I get purple. And from pink and yellow, I get orange. So try to get as much overlapping color as possible.
So what influences your color choices? Because in your books, you do have minimal color. And I know you said you didn't like the overwhelmingness of paintings, even though you do some paintings now. What causes your selection of colors for these?
Okay, let me show you this one. This was volume 2. This is from the golden edge to the gilded edge. So obviously this had to be gold. Then inside, pretty regular color, but then I get into the main color. It's golden orange. That's an American Mount Olympus. Now go to the centerfold, which is the gilded edge. Once again with the orange and gold. So for the financial side, and the blue bin, a very dark color in this one to make it more moody and ominous. So my color will reflect what's going on in the narrative. And also just like this was a challenge, like I hadn't done this color scheme before, so I set up a different color scheme for each volume. So play with it.
So really,
question.
Oh, go ahead, Rachel, sorry.
Thanks. We have a question from the chat about the volumes. They ask, Do you have the final volume planned, or is it an iterative process?
It's planned right now for volume 6, all the drawings, but it's not complete. I mean, I'm still working on it, and it'll change as I add the color. And in volume 3, for instance, I changed it, so it's still up until it's completely finished. And then when I print all 6 volumes, that's why I might need a 7th volume if it's not complete. So it's on its way, but it's not totally fixed what it's going to be.
Then we have another question from Jennifer, who asks, have you created any pandemic-related art? And if not, will you?
Well, I ended up, I created stuff that was kind of pandemic before the pandemic. So there's should be one coming up soon. So when we get to that, I'll talk about that again.
And so are you working, so it was already created prior to the pandemic?
Drawing was created, but when I went to the painting, I changed it. So the pandemic changed how the image was as a painting compared to it as a drawing.
And Amanda, if you can go back a couple of slides to the War Bride. I know you had told me that, I believe it was this one, that had a different story to it. So would you mind elaborating on that?
Did I didn't send the PDF, did I?
Maybe, yes. I don't think it made it into, I don't think it translated into the PowerPoint. I apologize.
That's fine. This ends up, I'm just my mom's story and this Winnie's story. So my mom was Winifred Kennedy. And she met my dad in Belfast. She was 16, he was 19. And she said she was 17. And they ended up getting permission to get married, had to get it right from the generals. And then my dad went off to war to Sicily, to North Africa, Sicily and Italy, and then came back a few years later. And then he went to America, and she followed on the War Bride. She was one of the first War Bride boats over to America.
So Amanda, if you will stop sharing, I was able to pull up the PDF. So let me go ahead and screen share this one. Share. Move these things out of the way myself so you guys can see it. So I will flip through this if you want to tell us a little bit more. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. Here we go.
Okay, so there's Belfast, Smoky City. There's the Shankill Road. There's the Falls Road. There's Orange Men marching. We're celebrating King Billy. Then there's the South coming in. And then there's my dad dancing with my mom where they meet at a club. And then there's my family set up, my grandfather and grandmother set up like the Bruins, a Scottish comic strip. And my dad trying to say that he's there for their daughter and getting kicked out because he's there for the youngest daughter. Then finally acquiesce, and then they get married. Then they go off to war, and then there's Patton on one side and Rommel on the other side. My dad fighting in North Africa. Then come back to America and living in different cities, trying different things. Both my sisters been born in America. Then things not working out, and then ended up back in Belfast. With my mom working at my dad at a bar, and my mom working at a brewery. And then to be continued.
So is this a series that you're going to continue working on? And
yeah, at this point, that's the 2nd chapter. And I have 19 chapters to make up the graphic novel. That's my other project for COVID times.
We have another question in the chat from Jade. Are there any cultures that show a direct influence on your art or subject matter?
well, the South and Ireland and Japanese prints. That'd be 3.
Amanda, if you want to go ahead and screen share back, looks like you're working on it. I feel like I can read your face.
Yeah.
So while we talk here, we're going to be looking at a video that you sent me of kind of how you do your prints. So while we look at this, everyone has had a lot of challenges teaching in COVID. When did you make this because you were working? You're having to teach remotely.
Teaching printmaking in the artist book. Normally it's be silk screen, but I changed it to lino cut for the first book, so it's more possible to do at home. And then to do it, I did videos to show how to do the process. So this was what I did for the teaching in COVID. And then I slowly worked towards silk screen and showed them that as well.
So what are 2 questions? Can you tell us the difference between a linograph and a silk screen?
Lino cut, you don't have as much control.
Sorry, lino cut. My apologies.
Not as much control over the line, so it's more, graphic shapes. And the ink is usually more opaque, so I'm not working with transparent ink. And I'm working with a reduction print, so basically printing the blue everywhere except for where the white line's coming through. Then after the blue's print, I'll cut away more of the block, and then print that in black on top. That's my 2-color lino cut. I always start the students out on a 2-color accordion book. It's the quickest way to get them into bookbinding and into printmaking.
So do you teach bookbinding as well?
Yep.
As part of the course?
Yep. Yeah, I've always said it's the course I teach was what I actually do. Make silkscreen prints and bind them together.
What have been some of the biggest challenges teaching remotely for you?
The thing I missed the most is actually helping the students actually print, because it's kind of like trying to see them print on the other side of the screen and make a mistake. I want to reach through the screen and say stop. And then I miss kind of seeing the actual prints and seeing people get inspired. But at the same time, they've done pretty well. I've had good stuff come out of the classes. The students are resilient.
I remember you telling us when we first talked about you doing this this coloring night that you were having to walk your students through mixing their own chemicals and paints and such. Yeah. in their bathrooms.
Hard to emphasize what's toxic and what they should be careful with.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like wear gloves, have a fan on.
Good ventilation.
I start them off in lino cuts so I can talk about what their setup is, so I can see if they should get a small screen or a big screen, what they can actually manage to do. It's my cat.
That's the best part about all of this. Our pets are everywhere during COVID. So teaching. Why did you decide to get into teaching?
Ended up that I moved to New York and I majored in printmaking at UAB, and so I ended up in New York. A friend, Harriet Cloud, helped me get a job at a place called Stereo Studio, which did lithographs for Donald Judd, Rauschenberg, Jasper Johns, other people, also Leroy Neiman, so a wide variety. And so I learned more about silkscreen and litho there. And then I quit that job after about a year because I realized I didn't want to print for other people. I wanted to be a printmaker, not a printer. And then I was working at an art store, and a person from that job came by and said she was working at SBA, and they needed a shop assistant that knew lithography. So I thought my degree and my job experience will give me a decent job. So I started there and then had access to the print lab and haven't left yet.
All because of the print lab
Yes.
that you don't have access to right now?
And we have a question from Lisa about teaching. She asks, how old are these students?
I teach two sets of students, undergrads, which can be 18 to 22, sometimes a little older. And I teach grad student illustration, and be anywhere from 23 to like 50.
And which courses are your favorite to teach?
I really enjoyed the printmaking because I could teach the craft, so I had so much to teach in it. But then after a while, I really wanted to talk about the subject matter more. So when I got the chance to teach graduate illustration, help people with major projects, that's been a lot of fun and inspiring, a good challenge.
Probably what keeps you teaching too.
Yep. No, it's always a different group every year, and then I get to bring in guest speakers for them, try to make that different for every group. So it's a fun project.
And so the Fright House series that we're looking at, because I know we're getting a little low on time, can you tell us more about this and when did you start it?
I started Fright House right when Trump got in, and it was just like thinking of all the monsters. Like there's a classic print by Hokusai, which is a house filled with a million monsters. So I thought that's what he'd done to the White House. So I tried to think of my favorite yokai, Japanese monsters, and see if I could do versions of them that would be Trump or Bannon. And after a while, I got tired of him, so he went away in the drawings, but kept reappearing without me wanting him to. And I like having side projects, so I've got my big things I'm working on, but also other sets of drawings and books.
Do you have any upcoming exhibitions should COVID go away soon, which we all hope it will? Did you have any exhibitions in the works?
Yeah, I had 3 exhibitions in France, 3 group exhibitions. One, there were some photos of it that you passed by. And then another one that moved to another town, supposed to do a workshop, but that didn't work out because of COVID. And then supposed to be in a group show at a museum in Paris, which I'm still waiting to hear if that's happening or not.
So people are still exhibiting during COVID, and you are able to kind of pack up some work and send it.
I'm hoping. So both shows were put on hold.
We have a question in the chat from Mari. What is your favorite subject matter to tackle?
That's a tough one. I mean, basically, whatever I want to think about at the moment is what's going to show up in the art. But basically, bring it on.
So whatever is most influential at the moment for either politics, or you're thinking more about history or your own history.
Right. So at this point, still thinking a good bit about history for the 76 series. And I mean, what it's about is kind of like the ghosts of American history that don't want to die. So there's plenty of those. So I got plenty to work with on that. And then the Irish history is the opposite. American history is like forgetting about it and not dealing with it. And Irish history is about being immersed in it and paralyzed by it. So I'm trying to think of those two playing off each other.
And so here we're looking at a silkscreen print. So can you describe the differences between what the first demonstration and then this one?
So silkscreen, what's nice about silkscreen is you can just knock them out. Once it's printed, just lift the screen up, flood it, another piece of paper, another print. It's very satisfying, because especially on the last color, because you can go, another beautiful print. Put outside, another beautiful print. It's very satisfying.
And Christina, we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay. And so here, the last set of pictures we're going to be looking at aging innocence. And can you tell us a little bit more about this one?
Yeah.
And then this one's a book.
I was asked to be in a magazine called Strapazine, Swiss German comic magazine, and they were doing an issue on aging. And so this is what I did. And then I worked out these cards to figure out if I had enough pages for this comic and for a book. These were the first roughs on index cards. And then I got it printed by Rizzo. So I made the separations. So they would work for offset printed for the German magazine, and then work for Rizzo for me to do like a quick version of it with a silk screen cover. And this is me growing up and then getting beat up in Ireland, playing soccer in the rain, football. Then leaving Belfast because of bombings and fires and all that stuff. Then on the airplane going to America. Then there's the country house with cotton fields, country music. Then there's me with my Nazi suits, clothes that I had from Ireland, not appreciated in Alabama. Then there's my first car, 64 Impala. Then there's me going to nightclubs in Birmingham. Like I felt like in Birmingham, you had to go to like any clubs you could find, like black clubs one night, country clubs another night, gay clubs another night, just to find fun where you could. Then moving to New York. Then just been in New York, going on road trips, having a kid, making paintings, getting older. Then my sister passing away was sad. That when I turned 50, and so that made me think about mortality, and that's where all this is. And thinking about turn 60, the end.
That's amazing. So is there any questions left in the chat, Rachel?
Not that I see.
Great. Okay. Well, David, it's always so fascinating to look at your work and see kind of the breadth of everything that you do and how rich it is. I've really enjoyed listening to this. I know we've talked a lot because you and John talk a lot, and we get to know you a lot more through when you come to AEIVA and to Birmingham. So it's always really fun to talk to you. If I can get everyone who's been working on something to turn on your screen and show us what you have been working on. We always love to see this and get some screenshots to share.
Thanks,
like a lot of us chose similar ones. I didn't get very far, obviously. Awesome. This is great. Thank you, everyone. And when you're done with or get it to a place that you really like it, be sure to share it on Facebook or Instagram and tag AEIVA in it. And we'll be sure to share it with David. So our Instagram handle is AEIVA at AEIVA UAB, which I will put right here in the chat. And thank you, David, so much.